It began high above the clouds, where life and death were decided at 25,000 feet. This is the story of the men who climbed into cold aluminum fortresses and flew straight into the heart of Hitler's Germany, the airmen of the B-17 Flying Fortress. When America entered the war in 1941, the situation in Europe was desperate. Britain had barely survived the Blitz. The Soviet Union was reeling under the weight of the German invasion, and Nazi forces controlled almost the entire continent. To strike back, the United States needed a way to reach deep into enemy territory, to destroy the factories, railways, and oil fields that fueled Hitler's war machine. The answer came in the form of one airplane, the Boeing B-17. The B-17 Flying Fortress was unlike any bomber the world had ever seen. With 4 massive Wright Cyclone engines, it could fly more than 1,700 miles, carry over 2 tons of bombs, and still defend itself with up to 13 heavy .50 caliber Browning machine guns. It was fast, tough, and deadly. Its nickname, the Flying Fortress, came from a newspaper reporter who, upon seeing its gun-covered frame, declared it a fortress in the sky. The name stuck and became legend. The first fortresses arrived in England in 1942, joining the newly formed 8th Air Force. Their mission was simple, but dangerous beyond measure: conduct daylight precision bombing over occupied Europe. The British preferred to bomb at night, hidden by darkness. But the Americans believed they could strike with accuracy in daylight, crippling Germany's industrial heart. It was an audacious plan, one that would test the courage of every man who climbed aboard. Each B-17 carried 10 crewmen, a pilot and co-pilot to keep the aircraft steady, a navigator to find the way through endless clouds and enemy territory, a bombardier who operated the famous Norden bomb site, a radio operator, and 5 gunners who manned the nose, top, waist, ball turret, and tail guns. They were young, often 19, 20 years old, and they came from every corner of America. Small towns, farms, cities, all united in one machine, one mission. When the engines roared to life on English airfields before dawn, frost still clung to the wings. The ground crews, mechanics, armorers, loaders worked through the night to prepare the bombers. They watched silently as the planes lifted off one by one, disappearing into the gray morning mist. Once the last plane left the runway, the airfields fell quiet. Those who remained behind knew that some of those planes would never return. Crossing the English Channel was the last moment of peace. Beyond it lay occupied France and the vast German air defense network, radar, flak guns, and fighter patrols. The crews called it Flak Alley. Explosions filled the sky with black puffs of smoke and razor-sharp shrapnel. Each burst could tear through metal like paper inside the plane. The men heard nothing but the deafening roar of engines, the staccato rhythm of machine guns, and the sharp metallic clang of flak hitting the fuselage. Temperatures inside the aircraft often dropped to 40 below zero. Frostbite was common. The men wore heated flight suits, but the wires often froze or shorted out. Oxygen masks iced over. A single hole in a fuel line could mean death. Yet, even in that frozen chaos, discipline ruled. The formation had to stay tight. 10 men inside a single B-17 depended on dozens of other planes around them for survival. Alone, they were targets. Together, they were a wall of firepower. The Bombardier's tool, the Norden bomb site, was a masterpiece of engineering atop. Secret mechanical computers said to be so accurate it could drop a bomb in a pickle barrel from 20,000 feet. In reality, precision was often impossible. Winds, flak, smoke, and evasive maneuvers made each drop uncertain. But when the bombardier called bombs away, hundreds of bombs fell in perfect unison, black specks turning into fire and steel as they hit rail yards, aircraft factories, and oil refineries. Targets like Schweinfurt and Regensburg became infamous among bomber crews. The ball-bearing factories at Schweinfurt were vital to German industry. Every tank, aircraft, and truck depended on them. The missions were devastatingly costly. In the 2 Schweinfurt raids of 1943, nearly 60 bombers were shot down, hundreds of airmen killed or captured. But the attacks crippled German production, proving that the strategy, though brutal, could work. By the end of 1943, the 8th Air Force was bleeding. Some units lost more than half their men in a single month. Crews counted down missions, praying to make it to 25. The magic number for rotation home. Most didn't. The odds of completing a full tour without being killed or captured hovered around 1 in 4. Still, they volunteered, they climbed back into the same battered planes over and over again, driven by duty, by pride, by the unspoken bond that no one would be left behind. The stories from those skies became legends. Planes like Memphis Belle, one of the first to complete 25 missions, or All-American, a fortress nearly sliced in half by a German fighter. Yet it still made it home. Crews returned with wings shredded, engines burning, holes you could crawl through, and somehow the fortress kept flying. It was said that she wanted to live as much as her crew did. In early 1944, the tide began to turn. The introduction of the long-range P-51 Mustang changed everything. For the first time, the bombers had fighter escorts that could follow them deep into Germany and back. The Luftwaffe, once dominant, began to crumble under the combined pressure. By mid-1944, the Americans were bombing Berlin itself in broad daylight. For the first time, the people of the Nazi capital looked up and saw hundreds of silver fortresses glinting in the sun, proof that the war was turning against them. Each mission still carried danger. The flak over Berlin was so thick it seemed like you could step out and walk on it. Fighters attacked head-on, guns blazing, yet wave after wave the fortresses came. The German industrial heartland, the Ruhr Valley, Hamburg, Munich, was reduced to rubble. Oil production collapsed. Trains stopped running, aircraft factories closed. The Nazi war machine was starving. By 1945, the Allies owned the skies. The once mighty Luftwaffe was broken. American bombers flew almost unopposed over a dying Reich. The missions didn't T-stop until the end. The final raids came just weeks before Germany surrendered. Then, one by one, the airfields in England grew quiet. The war was over. For those who survived, returning home was bittersweet. They were heroes, but they carried memories they could never forget. The friends who didn't come back, the smoke rising from burning cities, the sound of engines that would echo in their dreams for decades. Many never spoke of it again. They simply went home, found work, raised families, and lived the rest of their lives quietly. More than 12,000 B-17s were built during the war. Nearly 5,000 were lost in combat. Over 26,000 American airmen were killed flying bombing missions over Europe, more than the entire U.S. Marine Corps lost in the Pacific. Their courage and sacrifice helped bring Nazi Germany to its knees and end one of the darkest chapters in human history. Today, only a few flying fortresses still fly. You can see them at air shows, their engines rumbling like thunder from another age, the smell of oil and exhaust filling the air when they rise into the sky. Veterans and their families watch in silence for a moment. Time folds back. The past feels close. The frost on the glass, the black bursts of flak, the steady hands gripping the yoke. The B-17 was just a machine. It was a symbol of resilience, of ingenuity, of the unbreakable American spirit. It carried with it the hopes of a nation and the weight of every man who ever called it home. And as long as one of those fortresses still flies, the memory of those who flew them and the freedom they fought for will never fade.